Hi guys, welcome back. So today we're going to revisit a previous project. Now this is my lead lined pellet trap. It's actually one of my favourite projects that I've built on the channel so far. It's become really quite important on the channel. It's really handy, especially when we're moving targets about pellet testing and whatever. Now I've got some really good feedback on this. It's such a simple concept, incredibly easy to make even with basic tools, but a lot of you said, where am I going to get the lead from to start with to make the lining? How can I melt it down? If you haven't got the facilities obviously to melt it down, then it's going to be a bit of a problem. So today we're going to look at some alternative fillings. We're going to replace the lead lining inside of this with plumber's putty. Now this is a non-setting putty. It's not the same as glazing putty. Glazing putty will eventually cure and you can paint it. This stuff stays soft. So we're going to whip this apart, see if we can simplify it. We're going to swap the lead out with the plumber's putty. We're going to then take it up the farm. We're going to test it, see whether or not it's any quieter, any safer. And potentially with the plumber's putty, instead of the lead that's in this, which I'll show you in a moment, it may also mean that this is quite safe if you're shooting BB guns. Potentially, of course, they're a much lighter projectile. They should potentially stick into this quite well. So it would also possibly suit airsoft, and maybe even if you use catapults. I think that this as a lining media is going to be quite durable. I don't know how it's going to work out for me on the channel here, but we're going to get it all sorted out. We're going to get it fitted and we'll see how it goes. Right, so I've just pulled the legs off. Them legs actually are a really good idea. They are certainly very useful. When we're shooting it down the sheltered spot, this is actually clamped in a workmate down the end. That sort of firing point steps down, so it keeps it at the right sort of height. But the feet are really good, especially if we're out in the fields. We've been using it probably 6 months now, I reckon. It's got to be in that sort of region. It's holding up really well. Of course, we've shot it a few times, got a few little pellets stuck in it, so it's probably not wise to go too mad with the materials you make it out of, because of course it is going to get shot at. You can see here I've just added on a little screw eye. Now this was great because I can just clip on my tape measure, walk back to my firing point if I need to shoot from measured distances. So I'm going to flip it over now. We'll get this lead out of here and then we'll get some of this putty in. Now this putty actually is quite tough old stuff. I think this possibly is one of them non-Newtonian fluids, so I reckon the harder it gets hit, the harder it reacts. It should certainly, well, it certainly looks like it's going to stop any pellets pretty well. I don't know that we've got enough though, typically. So we may end up having to just put it in one half of the target, or maybe start with a thinner layer of it in the bottom there. But you can buy much bigger tubs of this from proper builders merchants. It's Saturday today typically, so I had to get these from Screwfix, but you can buy 3 kilo tubs of this from a decent plumber's merchant for 5, 6, 7 quid. These were sort of £4 a tub typically, and I don't quite think we've got enough. So I'm going to flip this over now, remove the front, get the lead out, and we'll stick some of that stuff in. Well, that's in pretty good order. That lead stopped them pellet strikes really well. There's actually no discernible damage. There's a few really minor dings in it, but nothing too bad. So quickly vacuum this lot up and then we'll have a better look at this. Wow, I wasn't expecting that. So we've got the lead free, they're the JSB heavies, or the lead free equivalent of the heavies. They're almost reusable. That's fascinating. You can see that these ones here, these are the H&N FTT greens. They've got a bit more head damage than the JSBs. The JSBs look almost entirely unmarked, whereas the FTT greens look like they have deformed slightly. That's interesting. I'll keep them aside. I might be able to do something with those. Let's pick all those out of there quick. Right, you can see that's holding up quite well. You can certainly see there's a bit more of a build-up of lead in the middle of that now, obviously where the pellet strikes have gone into it. Every time you fire it, of course, I've melted this down a few times and flattened it off. Overall, that's pretty good. That probably weighs about 3 kilos, something like that, maybe just a little bit under. So quite weighty, holding up pretty good. Right, let's get this back over, shall we? Right, let's see if we can get that. Oh, great. Well, it's worth stuck in the tub. Yeah, right, let's get a stick. would have thought the hardest part would be getting it out the flipping tub. Oh, it's tough. Is this going to be my nemesis, like masking tape? Why's that little bucket still alright? Right, finally. Let's just see if we can... Yeah, we're going to need more of this, aren't we? We'll stick it in. We'll probably just do half of the target and make a note just so that we... That's probably 3/4 of an inch thick, so I think if we... probably get a 3/4 inch thick layer on the top half of the target. Doesn't stick to your hands or anything like that, so nice and easy to work with once you can get it out of the tub. Let's try the second one. This stuff's actually non-toxic, practically waterproof as well, so if you've got targets that you do leave out in your garden or anywhere like that, if you get any rain through this, it's not going to run off anything toxic. Well, maybe your lead dust, but let's not mention that, shall we? Right, I've banned two things from the channel, masking tape and plumber's putty. It's not that warm in here today. It might not be a bad shout to sit this on a radiator or put it in the sun. It might make it a little bit easier to work. Right, finally. Right, when we put this back together, we'll keep it up that way, so we'll just shoot to the bottom of the target itself. We haven't got enough to go in there. These are 750 gram tubs, and it looks basically like you're going to need, well, 3 kilos. So one of the big tubs will probably be enough. I think this tray is, what, 25 by 25? 15? Well, about 25, 26 centimetres square, this tray. If you want about 3/4 of an inch, you're probably going to need about 3 kilos of this stuff for this size tray, I reckon, to do a nice job of that. But that's certainly a lot easier. You can do this indoors, you can do it in your kitchen, you haven't got to then deal with lead fumes and all of that lot. And obviously you can buy this off the shelf, which is important. If you haven't got any scrap lead to start with, of course that may well work perfectly. Right, let's get this reassembled and we'll run it out the farm and we'll go and shoot it. Right, so we've actually got, that's just over an inch thick now. That's useful. So that's if you've got an inch thick of this in the back of your trap, we'll know then whether or not that's enough or not. So 1 inch thick at the moment, we haven't got quite enough to fill the whole thing. So we'll set it up this way round, just make sure that we shoot at that stuff. Right, let's get it up the farm and we'll see how it goes, shall we? Right, let's get the katran out and we'll go and have a play, shall we? Right then guys, we're here. We're just under 25 yards as per usual in the shelter spot now. We've got that storm rolling over at the moment, but we have got a momentary break in the rain. It's been absolutely tipping it down. I'm just going to leave the card out. I'm just going to scatter around a couple of groups. I've got some JSB Ultra Shocks, so they're a slower pellet, a softer pellet. They're going to hit pretty hard, and I've also got some Barracuda with B8s. They should be a lot faster and they're a lot harder as well. So we'll do one this side, one that side, just rattle off a magazine each on the katran. We'll get it shot quick before it starts to rain, then we'll take it home and we'll dissect this and see how well it stopped them, if anything's come back out. So I'll get all the cameras set up and we'll get stuck in. Right then, so we've got about a dozen or so of the JSB Ultra Shocks in there. We're just going to put them to the left hand side in a bit of a scattered group and see what happens. The GoPro's on down the end. Right, it's definitely got a different tone to it. It's less metallic, of course, than the lead. Quite a bit quieter by the sound of things. I can actually see the back of the skirts in it, so they're not actually going that far into the material itself. Just put a few on top of each other. I can see from back here that they're not actually penetrating that far into it, which is pretty cool. Tell you what, the trigger on this feels bloody terrible at the moment. Since it's got cold, the trigger's started getting a bit creepy. Right, let's go have a quick look at that, shall we? Right, well that's very cool. They've barely stuck in there at all. That's quite impressive. We'll do a proper dissection of this when we get home. So it's definitely quieter than a lead marginally. It's more of a dull thud than a slightly metallic ting. Of course, with the back of the tray there, the lead in it does vibrate a little bit, but at the moment the only thing that I can think of that might be problematic for me is that am I going to dig them out and reuse them? Not sure. Right, let's go over to the B8s now. They're going to be running a lot faster and a lot harder, and we'll be able to get a good comparison, see whether or not they actually penetrate a bit deeper. Let's do it now. Right then, Barracuda 8s, just going to quickly swap back over to the single shot loader. While it's not raining, we'll just get these shot as quick as we can. Right then, B8's on the left hand side, sorry, on the right hand side even. Don't know if you can hear that wind rolling over the top of us, but it's a Storm Babbitt or whatever her name is, whatever a Babbitt is or whoever it is. It's doing a number on us at the moment, but we're quite lucky down here at the minute. It's just really windy and been really wet, but no flooding down here just yet. So you can definitely see your pellets stacked on top of each other, but of course once you've got a little layer in there, I'm not quite sure how they'll go. So I'm trying to just stack a few on top of each other now so we can see what the groups look like. And that rain's getting worse. Lid back on the pellets. Down the bottom, right, we'll call that the last one. That'll be pretty good. We'll go and collect this up and we'll go and dissect it all when we get home. Right, it's tipping it down now. You can see that the lighter B8s are obviously a faster pellet as well and harder. You can see they've penetrated a little bit deeper than the old Ultra Shocks on the left there. Of course, the Ultra Shocks are a flat head with a hollow point. These are a more traditional target looking pellet, so that's really quite cool. It's definitely a bit quieter than the lead, or there's a bit less resonance on it, so I'm going to take it home and we'll cut them out and see what they look like. Right then guys, we're back. I tell you what, that's quite impressive. It hasn't penetrated half as deeply as I thought they would do. Wow. You can see that it's completely mushroomed them heads over. Now these were the softer, but you can still see the little tip there. You can see the hollow point. So they are the Ultra Shocks JSB. So they're a hollow point, flat head. They're a particularly good pellet. I quite like those actually. And then this is one of the B8s. Wow, it has hit that really hard. It's actually deformed that fully. I don't know if you can see. I'll try and get a photo of those and put it up. They've completely flattened out where they've hit it. Let's have a little look at these ones. How do you measure your group sizes? We just get one nice little splat like that. That's really cool. Just all stuck on top of each other like that. Nice. Well, I'll tell you what, for me, I don't think it's going to work. I like to be able to recycle these pellets. I regularly melt the lead down to flatten it back off. But if you're looking to make a pellet trap and you don't have the facilities to melt the lead down, or even some spare lead to start with, I would highly recommend giving this stuff a go. The old plumber's putty is pretty good. Now, you're probably going to need more of it than you imagine. If your target something like this is 25 by 25 approximately, you're probably going to want in the region of 2.5 to 3 kilos, which is a readily available big tub size. Should cost you under 10 quid. A baking tray and a bit of wood and some magnets, so a really quite affordable target catcher to build, really simple to build, really nice concept. It works very, very well. Maybe having some removable feet is definitely a good idea for me. So I'll tell you what, I'm really quite happy with that. That's worked a lot better than I thought it would do. I reckon this would definitely be worthwhile if you're into airsoft, if you've got BB guns, maybe even, as I said before, catapult ammo. I reckon would go into that and it'd stop it quite safely. Should be very little chance of ricochets on this. Don't know for sure, but I would be fairly confident. So that'll do it for this one, guys. I'm really quite chuffed with this. I'm going to put it back to the lead. I'm going to make a smaller target box going forward that we can use this, and then we can do some long-term testing on the plumber's putty. So at the end of the video, I'll put a link up to how I built the original version of this. So that'll do it. I will catch you in the next one.